99% of people do the exact same thing, ignore the realities of death. And this creates another problem. People believe that they have a second go around at life. In their 20s, they pursue instant gratification, they abandon their purpose, and they delay their dreams, only to reach their 30s and 40s wishing they had received the rewards that those who did delay gratification, who didn't abandon their purpose and instead discovered it, and who also chased their dreams did receive. This creates one of the most painful emotional experiences, regret. We've all experienced regret when you saw that girl that you wanted to ask out, but you never really had the guts to do it, and then months later passes by and you see her in a new relationship and you are here with so much regret wishing that that would have been you. Yeah, that type of pain. The vast majority of regret stems from inaction, poor decisions, and following external voices. And inaction is associated with fear. Inaction seems to be the #1 cause of regret, with 3 in 4 adults saying that regret mainly was caused by the things that they wanted to do but never got around doing. And most people stay stagnant because of either fear of success, fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of rejection, fear of uncertainty, or fear of loss. Now, poor decisions usually stems from not knowing your personal goals and your personal aspirations. If you know what you want out of life, it's very hard for you to make decisions that are not aligned with that path. This is why it is extremely important for you to know what path you want to go on, because once you know this path and you know the vision of your life, then you're gonna make decisions that are aligned with that path, and you're gonna minimize the wrong decisions. The reason why a lot of people nowadays, especially young people, are out here making bad decisions like partying and doing drugs and all these other bad habits is because they don't even know exactly what they want out of life. And following the external voices comes from fear and from lack of awareness. When you do not know what you want out of life, instead of figuring it out and going through the discomfort of finding that path that you want to go on, it is extremely easy to just do what your parents, your teachers, your friends, your siblings, it's easier to do what they think is best for you. And when you have extreme fear of criticism, it is also easy to just follow the path that the majority thinks is the best path for you, because if you decide to go on your own path and you fear criticism so much, you're gonna receive your own set of criticisms, and since you fear it, you're not gonna wanna go through that struggle or that pain. And so at that point, you're gonna think it's best if I just follow the path that they said so that I can avoid the criticism and the judgment. Now, one of the most painful regrets, and I think we all can agree on this, is the waste of time. Just look around you. Most people are actually wasting time. They're not prioritizing what's actually important in their life, especially people in their 20s. They don't even realize the prime years of their life that they're in right now, and they're not taking advantage of it. They're letting the opportunity slip away. And you see this every night on Fridays. You see this in the bars. The reason why this type of regret is so painful is because you cannot get it back. I mean, when it comes to money, you can lose it and still get it back. There's some other things in life that you can lose and still gain again, but time is something that you cannot gain after losing it. And that is why the regret of inaction is more painful than the regret of action. With action, the regret loses its strength over time and you actually learn from it. Like, yeah, when you ask that girl out, it might hurt at that moment when she rejects you and you have to go turn around and you're out there with your face like so ashamed and so embarrassed. You might actually regret even asking her out because you just went through an embarrassing moment. But over time, a week later, a month later, it's not even going to be as painful anymore. You're actually going to be glad that you did it because you're going to learn something from that girl rejecting you. But when it comes to inaction, the regret seems to get stronger as time goes on. You spend your young years with no responsibilities and you spend it partying, having the time of your life, and you dedicated no time on your goals, on your dreams, and then you end up reaching an age where you now have heavier responsibilities and now you regret that you didn't take advantage of your youth. It seems that as you get older, the regret of inaction gets a lot more stronger. In Think and Grow Rich, which is actually a great book that I highly recommend you guys to read, Napoleon Hill said that there are 6 basic fears that you need to overcome in order to live your dream life, in order to live the ideal fulfilled life. And one of them is the fear of criticism. This is one of the major root causes of why 99% of people are not actually prioritizing what's important to them so that they can live their most authentic life. They fear what others think or say about what they're gonna do. In the end, to avoid the criticism, they end up living a life that is not incongruent with the desired life that they truly wanted to live. And once they realize the time that they wasted, they end up feeling depressed, full of anxiety, and they end up having a sense of hopelessness. They realize that the time that they wasted cannot be bought like other things that we waste. About over a month ago, I read the book The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, and midway through the book, I came across a story that really gave me a lot of perspective. He was telling a story about when he went to work for a company and he was put in a sales position, and this was not a position that he wanted to be in because he hated sales, mainly because he had a very extreme fear of rejection. And so the fear was so big that he was actually thinking about quitting the job and going back to grad school. But what stopped him from doing that was him realizing that successful people do what the unsuccessful people are not willing to do. And so he just followed through with it despite his fear of the rejection. In his first sales call, he wanted to approach a small account because in case he would fail, it wouldn't really mean much. And so he ended up approaching a drugstore. And so he found the location of the drugstore. He drove there and then he parked outside. And when he was parked outside in his car, he was like kind of paralyzed. He was with so much fear that his palms were sweating and he was literally thinking of not doing it. And as he was sitting in the car, he remembered about an article that he had read 2 days prior. And here's what he said. At the average funeral, I read about 10 people cry. 10 people? That's it? You mean I go through my entire life, spending years enduring all these trials and tribulations and achievements and joys and heartbreaks, and at the end of it, there are only 10 people in the world who care enough to show up and cry? And once the funeral was over, the number one factor that would determine how many people would go on from the funeral to attend the actual burial would be the weather. Yes, if it happened to be raining, said the article's author, 50% of the people who attended my funeral would decide maybe they wouldn't go on to attend the burial after all and just head home. Now, I really couldn't believe it. Half the congregation checks out halfway through because it's starting to rain. This really bummed me out. But now, sitting there in my car outside that little drugstore in Gainesville, I discovered it was liberating. You know what? I don't give a damn about what anybody thinks of what I'm doing anymore. If the odds are that iffy as to whether or not they even cry at my funeral, and chances are no better than 50 out of 50 that they'll duck out before I'm planted if the sky happens to cry for more than the people do, then why am I spending so much time worrying about what they're thinking now? Why would I be afraid of rejection? Why would I care about having a door or two slam in my face? Why would I be concerned about what the majority thinks or worry about what the 95% say, think, or do? I finally mustered what courage I could, turned off the car, went inside, and gave what I am convinced to this day was the worst presentation in the history of sales. But when I got back in my car, I was elated. I had blown the sales call and achieved a victory in my life. When I first read this, my first thoughts were, well, how do I know if it's true that only 10 people come to your funeral? And also, where is the evidence that 50% would decide to go home if it rains instead of going to the bureau? But then I realized that that wasn't the point that the author was trying to make. The point is that when you die, some of the people who you care so much about what they think or say are going to go to your funeral, and some are not. Some are not even going to go to your bureau either. Some are going to mourn, some are not going to mourn. And guess what? A few days, weeks, months pass by, and they're going to go back to their normal lives. They might think of you here and there, but you're not going to be on their mind 24/7. If they were close to you, they're going to feel immense pain in the beginning, but then eventually they're going to move on just like everybody else does. And those who weren't that close to you, they're going to move on quicker than anybody else. So then I thought to myself after reading this, why should I care about what everybody else thinks or says if this is how it's going to be for everybody at the end? Thinking about death a lot is not ideal, I know, but accepting the reality of it is. To be honest, accepting the fact that one day you're going to die is actually liberating because you realize that none of us, not you and not me, are going to make it out of here alive anyways. We all have timers above our heads that we cannot see. It's invisible and the clock is ticking as time goes on. And I know that may sound scary right now as I said it, because you actually start to visualize this when you see people like an imaginary clock, but that is the truth. All of us are living on borrowed time. We don't know how much time we have left on this earth. Some people have weeks, days, months, years. You don't know. When you realize and accept that fact, it gives you a new perspective, a perspective that will allow you to live in congruence with the life that you desire to live, so that you can minimize the painful regrets that you will experience later on. You'll stop letting what people think or say dictate how you're gonna live your life. You'll start that YouTube channel finally. You'll begin to build that business that you've been wanting to build for a long time. You'll move out of state and move to a different state to begin a new chapter. You'll realize that inaction is way more painful than action, because you realize that when you take action and if you do end up making a mistake, you realize that you can come back from any mistake and that you actually grow from it when you learn from it. Whereas when you don't take any action, you not only do you not grow, but you don't learn anything new, and you also experience that regret lingering in your mind. Once you realize that the current life that you live in right now is going to eventually lead to painful regret later, first you're going to hate the fact that you wasted so much time. That is for sure. But then you're going to gain a sense of hope, knowing that if you change what you do right now, you're going to change how your future looks. In other words, you're going to prioritize a lot more better. Your priorities won't be based on what gives you immediate gratification, but it will be based on what is aligned with your personal vision. When your priorities are aligned with your personal vision, you're going to have a peace of mind knowing that this is what you truly want to do. And you're also going to leave out any what ifs by taking risk and by seizing opportunities that come your way so that you don't miss out on any chances. You'll be living a life that you truly were meant to live, having no painful regrets in the future, knowing that you're using your time wisely right now. And you'll be living life more fully and more authentically, knowing that life is not infinite for anyone. If you guys haven't read the book Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, you guys should read it. But in that book, if you've read it, you guys know that Marcus reminding himself of his mortality several times throughout the book. And the reason why he did this is to first enjoy the present moment, but also to realize the short reality of life. And this all arrives to the same goal, to avoid having a regretful life. So here's what you need to do to avoid living a regretful, painful life. Every day that passes by that you do not reflect on is a missed opportunity to learn, to grow, and to correct course, leaving you vulnerable to regrets that eventually will build over time. A daily debrief helps you gain clarity on what is working and what isn't. It helps you gain clarity on the mistakes that you're making, helping you correct those mistakes so that you can avoid them from compounding and then hindering you from you getting closer to your goals. It helps you correct those mistakes so that you can get where you want to go to in life. Doing a daily debrief improves your decision making, your mental health, and your personal development, minimizing regrets in the long term. Now, I created what I call the analyzer for free, which helps you do exactly that. It helps you do a debrief in 10 minutes or less so that you can improve daily and also avoid making the same mistakes, basically correcting the mistakes that you're making daily so that you can get closer to your goals. So go ahead and get it down below for free so that you can start breaking the chains and finally start living the life that you want to live. Spending most of your life doing unfulfilling work is a guaranteed fast track to painful regret, but pursuing meaningful work that excites you, that challenges you, ensures that your days are filled with meaning and with purpose. Now, we first have to accept the reality that we're living in a very different era compared to our parents and our grandparents. 50, 40, 60 years ago, our parents, our grandparents couldn't pursue their passionate work or their fulfilling work. They had to do work that would give them an income so they could take care of their families, and that's it. If you wanted to do anything that would give you any sort of success financially, you had to go to college. But now we live in a very different era where you could basically make an income doing whatever. You can make an income pursuing your passion and work, pursuing your life purpose. The other day, I saw on YouTube a guy, no joke, who literally only posts videos of him mowing lawns. Like, he'll go to houses where their front yard or their yard looks horrible and he fixes it by mowing their lawn. And that's all he posts on YouTube. And he has millions of followers and he makes an income from doing it. No joke, there are people who love cutting hair and are growing personal brands on social media making money cutting hair. Like, we've all seen those videos and those short clips of a guy who goes to the barber and he literally looks like a homeless guy. You know, his beard is all not shaped up, his hair has no shape up at all, and then the barber does a before and after. Before, he looks this way, then he spins the chair, and then after, once the haircut's done, dude looks like unrecognizable. The truth is, work is going to take up the majority of our life, and it's something you cannot ignore unless you want to be homeless. The key is not to ignore the reality that we are going to spend most of our life working, but to instead find work that we find fulfilling and that we want to genuinely pursue. Now, if you have a demanding 9-to-5 that is unfulfilling and you want to pursue fulfilling work, identify the pockets of free time that you have in your day outside of work that you can take full advantage of. This can be mornings, evenings, and weekends. Be very intentional with this time since you have very little of it. Many people use a lack of time as an excuse, but if you were to look at their screen time in their phone, you would realize that people actually have more time, they just don't know how to manage it. And so to effectively help you manage your time and take full advantage of it, I strongly advise you guys to time block your days. This helps you make time for the fulfilling work that you want to do so that eventually later on you escape the unfulfilling work that you despise doing. You can time block your days writing it on paper, but I actually recommend you guys to use an app because we can get reminders of when we're supposed to do something. When you write it down on a piece of paper, you can easily like forget about it. It can be ripped up, but when you have it in an app, you get reminders of it on your app on your phone that you are, supposed to do this at this time. I use Notion calendar, but you guys could use Google Calendar as well. Living a lifestyle where you do not let what people think or what people say dictate how you're going to live your life is a very powerful antidote to regret that seems to be taking over most people's lives nowadays. Winston Churchill actually said something so profound that actually makes you realize how dumb it actually is to not do something that you want to do because of fear of judgment. He said this: when you're 20, you care what everyone thinks. When you're 40, you stop caring what everyone thinks. And when you're 60, you realize no one was even thinking about you in the first place. Just think about you. When you go to bed, who are you thinking about? Are you thinking about other people, or are you thinking about your life and your own problems? Most likely you're thinking about your life, your own problems. And guess what? If you're experiencing that, all the people around the world are doing the exact same thing. When people go to bed, they're not thinking about you. They're not thinking about how much of a fool you made yourself seem today or the mistake that you made yesterday. They're thinking about their problems that they have in life and how they're going to solve them, or what they're going to do to heal their depression, or how to get rid of this anxiety that they have. That's what they're thinking about when they're going to bed. Stop letting fear of criticism stop you from living your most fulfilling life. Truly, like, you need to stop this now. You already missed out on a lot of opportunities already because you're letting this fear stop you. Don't let the rest of the opportunities that are to come in your life slip away because of the exact same reason. As Napoleon Hill said in his book Think and Grow Rich and in Outwitting the Devil, letting this fear control you is not gonna let you live your life to its fullest potential. Once you stop caring about what other people think, you're gonna be more risk taking, which is gonna encourage you to grow and live a more fulfilling life. So ask that girl out. Start that YouTube channel, drop out of college and build that business that you've been wanting to build so badly. Like I said in the beginning of this video, when you die, people are gonna mourn, but then days, weeks, and months are gonna pass by and their life is gonna go back to normal. They're gonna move on. So why let them dictate your life right now while you're alive? I was once told by somebody a lot older than me that life doesn't get easier as you get older, especially if you didn't set a foundation in your 20s. And what is the foundation? Prioritizing your health, selecting a skill or a field that you can become an expert in, and discovering your purpose. There are people who say you only live once as an excuse to fall to instant gratification. But the truth is, you don't live once, you live every day. You die once, and before that time comes, make sure that you're living your ideal life that is aligned with your personal vision so that you can avoid the painful taste of regret later on. But anyways, that's all I gotta say. I'm out.